Hello everyone, welcome back to another director ranking. This time one of the best, Orson Welles. Obviously Citizen Kane is his most well known, and many consider it the best movie ever made. Probably the majority of people, if they asked, what's the best movie, they would probably say Citizen Kane. Not like your favorite maybe, but like the objective best, just because you hear it so much. Now, I don't think it's the best movie ever made. In my Dylan's Top 200 video that'll come when I reach 200 subscribers, it's certainly up there. But there are definitely ones that I enjoy watching better. Objectively, it would be ranked even higher, though, because it's just an awesome movie. Now, what gets, not overlooked by, fans of film, but maybe by the general public that only knows Citizen Kane. He has no bad movies. Seriously, he's one of the most consistent and unique directors of all time. And I think a lot of that is he had no film background before coming to Citizen Kane, so his ideas of what film were, or what film is, and what cinema is, were pretty much non-existent. So it was pretty much an open book to experiment on. And that's why I think Orson Welles is such a great director, because he really changed the game. In the 1940s, through my watch list, watching his classics here, he was peerless. No one could touch him in terms of directing, in terms of style. Now, later on, obviously people that came after him, have seen his stuff and can base their filmmaking off that. But for his time, he was the best. Now let's start with Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane, 5-star masterpiece. The only people who say they don't like it is just because they've heard it's the best movie of all time so much, but it really is. I would not argue with people who said it was the best movie. I would just argue for stuff like 8.5 or 2001. Those are probably the only two movies I would say that are really better than Citizen Kane in the scope, and objectively. Objectively, I think 8.5 and 2001 are the top. Citizen Kane, don't want to spoil it, but you probably know the ending by now. One of the best openings, one of the best endings, one of the best everything. This is his directorial debut. Citizen Kane is his directorial debut, which is extremely impressive. He's an amazing actor, amazing director. Wrote it, produced it. I don't know if he produced it, but obviously one of the best films ever made. Next is The Magnificent Ambersons. Now, I have heard people claim this is better than Citizen Kane. Now, that's not true. I will put this in the great tier, almost God tier. This was actually cut down, not like significantly, I don't think, but a little bit by the studio. And so Orson Welles always complained about that, and he always mentioned that. A lot of people consider this to be a masterpiece, though. I'm not on that level yet, maybe on the rewatch, but it's certainly an awesome film here. And it's about the Amerson family. The spoiled young heir to the decaying Amerson fortune comes between his widowed mother and the man she has always loved. Great cast. Orson Welles, not in it. He's the narrator. But you look at follow-ups to amazing movies. A lot of directors, it doesn't really live up to the hype. But a lot of directors, it actually does live up. Well, now that I think about it, most of the time, it does live up to the hype. I'm thinking about, Kubrick followed 2001 up with, if you saw my ranking, his second best movie, Clockwork Orange. Fellini followed up 8.5 with Juliet and the Spirits, one of his best movies, masterpiece. And Orson Welles followed up Citizen Kane with Magnificent Ambersons. Awesome movie. The Stranger is next. Definitely another great film here. And this is when we get into his crime, film noir classics here. And The Stranger's definitely one of them. A man working for the War Crimes Commission suspects that an important Nazi official has folded himself to a quaint Connecticut town. It's an awesome crime story. Plays out to perfection. Next, we have The Lady from Shanghai. One of his best here. You know what? I'll put it in the God tier below Citizen Kane. This is an awesome movie. One of his best. And you talk about film noirs and crime. This personally, this is probably in my top 3, maybe top 5. It's just really strong throughout. You get him and his wife at the point, Rita Hayworth, girlfriend, I believe wife. I don't want to spoil it, but there's a trope in a lot of crime movies. This is the first one. It's a major trope that you can see in a ton of movies. It first happened here. Macbeth. Now, not one of my favorites, but it's one of my lowest rated Orson Welles movies, but it's still 3.5. I still think it's a pretty great movie. But for Orson Welles, I will put it in the Met tier. Why? It just doesn't feel, it doesn't have the same feel as some of his better films. It is a Shakespeare adaptation. It is a really great one at that. But again, it's like, okay, here we go, Macbeth. We all know the story. We all know this. I don't know. Couldn't get into it as much as others. And again, we have another Shakespeare adaptation, Othello, which is also very good. I have it ranked 3 stars. And I could probably move that up to 3.5, honestly. But, again, I will put it in the Met tier for the fact that, again, it's not an original story. It just feels like, okay, it's a Shakespeare adaptation, even if it is Orson Welles, the legendary. Mr. Arkadin. I love Mr. Arkadin. Going to be in the great tier for me. Now, this is probably the most studio interference, or maybe not, maybe it's just by country, but there's actually a Criterion release. It's called The Complete Mr. Arkadin. This is known by different titles, too, in different countries. The UK title, the US title, it's all different. And there's, different cuts of it. But, overall, it is a great crime movie here, and one that I will definitely revisit in the future. Next is Touch of Evil. Now, I could have saw this at the Music Box Theater in Chicago recently. Kind of sad I didn't, but it's another classic. In terms of film noir, this is maybe the best there is. It's a certified it's a masterpiece. And when you look at Orson Welles' masterpiece, you think Citizen Kane, and usually second you think Touch of Evil. And I actually don't think that's the truth. I'll talk about it in a little bit. But I think it's a 5-star film. So it's going to be right in the God tier. Next is The Trial. I wasn't expecting that much from The Trial, even though I'm a big fan of Orson Welles and I'm a big fan of Anthony Perkins. But when I watched The Trial, it blew me away. It's easily, I guess you could say Citizen Kane's is most experimental in a way, but definitely The Trial. Look at this. This is one you just got to watch for the concept alone. An unassuming office worker is arrested and stands trial, but he is never made aware of his charges. And it has surrealism. It has, I don't know, it's just an insane kind of story here, and I don't know, it's like a nightmare. It's like a nightmare. It's like a dream. We live inside a dream. Things just, you in a dream you wander you're in one place, right? And all of a sudden you wander somewhere else, and you don't question it because it's a dream. That's kind of like this film here. And it's not one of his most well-known films, but it's just so amazing. I'm sorry for fans of Touch of Evil, but I think The Trial is definitely Orson Welles' second best movie. If you consider it his best, I actually wouldn't argue with you. But I think, the thematically, the message, the overall message of the bureaucracy and just the negative aspects of, all the red tape and stuff. I just think, everything considered, it's his second best movie. Chimes at Midnight. Another great one. Now, this is another Shakespeare adaptation. I think this is his best because I believe it's his most unique take on it. This one's more memorable than the other ones too. So for me, this is going to go in the great tier, probably above Mr. Arkin, just a little above it. The Immortal Story, kind of forgotten about, I feel like, in the Wells catalog. Again, never released a bad movie, and in any other filmmaker's list, this would be in the great tier. For me, this is probably his weakest, even though it's a really strong movie. Yeah, so... But I couldn't get into it as much as his other films. F for Fake. This is a documentary. If you watch this and it's just endlessly entertaining, and half the time you have no idea what he's talking about, but Orson Welles is just such a captivating personality that you listen to him. When Orson Welles talks, you listen, and that stems back to his career in radio. He convinced people that aliens were actually invading. But this is about documents the lives of infamous fakers Elmer DeHory and Clifford Irving. DeHory, who later committed suicide to avoid more prison time, made his name by selling forged works of art by painters like Picasso and Matisse. Irving was infamous for writing a fake autobiography of Howard Hughes. Wells moves between documentary and fiction as he examines the fundamental elements of fraud and the people who commit fraud at the expense of others. This is a great watch. I definitely recommend it. I'll put it a little above Mr. Arkin. Now we have it's like Twin Peaks: The Return. He returns after all these years. His last film before this was what? F for Fake was in 1973. So what? That's 45 years, I believe, until this came out. And this is his film. It was like rediscovered or something. But he made this, and it came out in 2018 on Netflix. And this is one of his most experimental yet. And honestly, it's another amazing film from him. And I think it's actually, I wouldn't put it above The Magnificent Ambersons, but I'd put it right up there. It's an awesome movie. Definitely check it out if you have a Netflix subscription and you haven't seen it yet. So yeah, not a bad movie in the catalog. Honestly, I enjoy all these movies a lot. So, that's all for now. The next director ranking, I actually don't know which one will be exactly next, but I do have some French New Waves directors that I'm watching all their films. So, those are probably what's next to come.